All right, Walter Wofford back with another video. We're marching along the road, the short-term rental cash flow roadmap. And this is another video, but today is something very exciting. For those that want to scale your business the fastest possible way, you need to learn about arbitrage. Arbitrage is a term that means you buy in one market and you sell in another. Or in this case, you rent in one market and you rent in another. So we go find a landlord that's got a fixed up house is trying to rent it. You rent the house at market rates from them. Then you furnish it and put it on short-term rentals, Airbnb platform. And just to kind of give you an idea, if a house could make $1,500 as an unfurnished vacant house, then you should be able to get $5,500 or more short-term rentals. So you see, that's the spread. Buy it by the barrel, sell it by the shot, buy it by the acre, sell it by the lot. That's the idea. So this is a concept that you don't have to buy the house. You got to buy the furniture and get it up and running, but you don't have to actually buy the house. So if you wanted, theoretically, if you wanted to get a house up and running within 10 days, you could do that through the arbitrage method. And there are plenty of landlords out there that would love for you to be a long-term tenant who takes care of their house. So if you want to get a copy of the ebook, just click on the link after you look at the QR code with your phone camera. Click on the link and fill out the information. And as always, I got my AI team helping me to tell you about this important concept. Arbitrage. Walter Wofford, thank you.
Okay, so today we're jumping into something pretty interesting our source material covers. It's a strategy that, well, it suggests a way to get into real estate income without actually buying property. We're going to unpack short-term rental arbitrage.
Yeah, that's right. We've got this specific set of sources focusing just on this model. And our goal here, in this deep dive is really to pull out the key stuff. What it is, how they say it works, the good bits, but also, really importantly, the risks and what it takes operationally, according to this material anyway.
Right. And the hook they present is, well, it's pretty compelling, isn't it? Imagine generating, essentially significant income from property, maybe thousands a month per unit, just through being smart operationally and managing relationships, not dealing with mortgages.
It's definitely a different angle on real estate. The sources frame it less about the property value going up and more about intense cash flow generated through hospitality, managing a business. It takes a very different skill set, they argue, than, say, being a traditional landlord.
Okay, so let's break down the basic definition first. According to these sources, what is short-term rental arbitrage?
Well, at its core, the concept is pretty straightforward. You, maybe as an individual, maybe as a company, you rent a property long-term, sign a standard lease, maybe 12 months, 2 years. But instead of living there yourself, you furnish it nicely, and then you re-rent it out short-term to different guests. Could be for a night, could be for a few weeks, maybe even a couple of months, using platforms like Airbnb, Vrbo, maybe your own website.
Okay, so the key thing here, the arbitrage bit, is that the money you make, your profit, it comes purely from the gap between the fixed long-term rent you're paying and the hopefully higher total income you get from all those short-term bookings. And you're doing this without actually owning the building.
Exactly. That's the core idea. And the source material really positions this as appealing for entrepreneurs, maybe focused more on cash flow, or, those looking for a lower capital entry point compared to needing a big down payment for a purchase.
All right, so that's the what. How does the source say you actually do this? They lay out some steps. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so step one, and they really stress this, it's crucial. Finding a landlord who's on board. This isn't like just renting an apartment to live in. You absolutely have to find an owner who knows what you plan to do sublease for short stays and explicitly agrees to it. The sources hammer this point. You need to sell them on the benefits for them. Things like, guaranteed rent checks, the place being professionally cleaned all the time, a stable business partner.
Right. So no sneaking around. The sources are clear. Disclosure and agreement are paramount.
Absolutely critical. Okay, so once you have that agreement, step 2 is getting the place ready, furnishing it, setting it up. And it's not just checking in some old furniture. You're basically creating like a vacation rental or a corporate apartment. So good beds, a kitchen with all the basics, pots, pans, dishes, definitely reliable Wi-Fi, a TV. And then the source mentions adding those extra touches that get good reviews. Smart locks for easy check-in, maybe a local guidebook, hotel-style soaps and things. The idea is making it really appealing to guests.
Makes sense. That guest experience is going to drive the bookings. So step 3 then is getting it online.
Yep. Building those listings, Airbnb, Vrbo, maybe your own site too. And the sources say, get professional photos, non-negotiable, plus write descriptions that really sell the experience of staying there.
And then the bookings roll in, hopefully, and step 4 kicks in, managing the actual guest stays. This sounds like where the real work is.
Oh yeah, this is the operational core. You're handling questions, coordinating check-ins, checkouts, which happen way more often than long-term rentals, communicating with guests, making sure everything's smooth, and crucially, managing the cleaning between every single guest. It has to be spotless. The source mentions specific tools here to help automate things, like Hospitable for messages and calendars, Turno for finding and scheduling cleaners. It's all about maintaining that 5-star experience because that directly impacts future bookings.
And if you do all that right, you get to step 5, the profit, seeing that spread work for you.
Exactly. End of the month, you look at your total gross income from bookings, then subtract all the costs. The rent you pay the landlord, utilities, cleaning costs, supplies, insurance, platform fees, whatever's left over, that's your net profit for that unit.
Okay, let's make this concrete. The source gives a specific example, right? A hypothetical place in Dallas. Helps to see the numbers.
Right, they do. So in their example, they assume a 2-bedroom apartment where the monthly rent you pay the landlord is $1,800.
Okay, $1,800 rent. And they project income based on, 24 nights booked? At $150 a night?
Yeah, they call it a conservative estimate. So 24 times $150 gives you $3,600 in gross income from Airbnb for the month.
$3,600 gross. Now the expenses they list.
Right. Subtract the $1,800 rent. Then $300 for cleaning. They figure 6 turnovers at $50 each.
Okay.
Then $200 for utilities and internet. And another $150 for supplies, maybe some software subscriptions.
So let's see, $1,800 plus $300 is $2,100, plus $200 is $2,300, plus $150, $2,450 in total monthly expenses in this example.
Exactly. So you take the $3,600 gross income, subtract the $2,450 in expenses.
And you're left with what, $1,150 net profit per month for that one unit?
That's the number in their example, yeah. About $1,150.
Okay, so the point here isn't just the dollar amount, but that this profit is generated just from managing the arbitrage, the spread, not from the property value itself.
Yeah.
But it does take money to start, right? The source mentioned upfront costs, furnishing, deposit.
Oh, definitely. It's not free money. They estimate maybe $5,000 to $8,000 per unit to get it furnished and set up, plus first month's rent and deposit.
Still, that's a lot less than a down payment on buying.
Precisely. That's the trade-off. Lower capital to get started, focused on operations.
So why would someone choose this? According to the source, what are the big upsides they highlight?
Well, the first big one they talk about is that lower barrier to entry.
Yeah, that makes intuitive sense. No massive mortgage needed.
Exactly. Your main upfront cash is for rent, deposit, and furniture, not tens or hundreds of thousands for a down payment. The source really presents this as a way for people maybe without huge savings or who want to get into real estate faster to get started.
And then there's the high income potential. That's definitely a big draw.
Yeah, they argue that because you're charging nightly or weekly rates, you can potentially bring in like 2 or 3 times the gross rent compared to just renting it out long term. They suggest realistic net profits could be, $500 to $2,000 a month, maybe even more per unit if you manage it well, keep it booked.
Scalability is another advantage they mentioned.
Right. And this is key to seeing it as a business. Because you're not limited by saving up down payments for each new property.
Yeah.
The argument is you can potentially scale faster.
Yeah.
Add more units, maybe even in different cities. The challenge then becomes building the systems to manage all those units efficiently, not just finding the capital to buy them.
Interesting shift in bottlenecks. And lastly, they touch on potential business tax deductions.
Yeah, because you're running a proper business, the source notes that things like the furniture cost, cleaning fees, software you use, specific STR insurance, maybe even travel costs if you're managing units elsewhere. Those can potentially be claimed as business expenses, which could reduce your taxable income.
Okay, so those are the attraction points. But every strategy has downsides. What about the challenges and risks? The source material definitely covers those too.
Oh, yeah. And this part is really important to understand. They flag legal and regulatory issues as, like, maybe the single biggest risk.
Yeah, you hear about cities getting tough on Airbnb and stuff. What specifically does the source say you need to watch out for?
It really stresses that lots of cities have brought in strict rules. You might need special permits, licenses. Sometimes there are limits on which properties can even be used for STRs, or, in some places, outright bans, especially if you don't live in the property yourself. The source is emphatic. You have to research the local zoning laws, any HOA rules, city licensing before you even think about signing a lease.
Wow. So getting that wrong could just completely kill the business before it starts.
Pretty much. Fines, legal trouble, being forced to shut down. It's presented as a make-or-break first step. Diligent research is key. Then there's landlord resistance. Like we said, finding a landlord who's okay with this isn't always easy.
What are their main worries, according to the source? Why the hesitation?
Well, the source implies they worry about, damage from lots of different guests, noise bothering other tenants, maybe liability issues, which is exactly why the source spends so much time on how to pitch this to landlords.
Okay.
We can get into that script they suggest. It's all about addressing those fears up front.
Right. And unlike a normal rental with steady income, your revenue here can swing wildly with market fluctuations.
Absolutely. Your income depends entirely on getting bookings at good rates. That can change a lot with the seasons, if there's a big event in town or not, how much competition pops up, even just the general economy. You've got way more vacancy risk.
And even though it's less than buying, they still list upfront costs as a hurdle.
Yep. That $5 to $8 for furniture plus rent, deposit, photos, maybe some marketing. You still need a decent chunk of cash available to launch each unit. It's lower capital risk maybe because no mortgage, but it's definitely not zero upfront capital needed.
Okay. The source also mentions some essential tools to help manage all this complexity.
Yeah, they kind of group them. For managing bookings and calendars, which is vital, so you don't double book across Airbnb, Vrbo, etc., they mention those platforms themselves, plus tools like Hospitable.
And for cleaning coordination, getting cleaners in quickly between guests, they suggest tools like Turno.
Right. And for the money side, banking and budgeting tools. They name drop RelayFi for business banking and using a system like Profit First to manage the cash flow.
And then tools specifically for the guest experience itself.
Yeah, things like Smart B&B for automated messages, digital guidebooks with all the info, smart locks for easy check-in. The source highlights these because good reviews and smooth operations are what keep the money coming in. These tools help make the constant turnover manageable.
Which brings us to what sounds like a really unique part of the source material. Actually, talking to the landlord. They provide a specific script, even, shows how vital that conversation is.
It's absolutely the key that unlocks the whole thing. The source really pushes approaching it, not like you're just asking to sublet, but like you're a professional housing business proposing a partnership that's good for them. You have to frame the value immediately.
So less asking permission, more proposing a deal, like a creative rental agreement.
Exactly that. You suggest a longer lease, maybe 2 or 3 years, and you pitch it based on guaranteed rent, paid on time, every time, by a reliable business year. You promise the property will be kept in great shape with frequent professional cleanings. You basically take the management headaches off their plate.
How does the script say to explain the actual short-term rental part without setting off alarm bells, about parties?
It suggests being honest, but framing it carefully. You explain you run a business providing temporary accommodations, and you name the types of guests, like business travelers, families relocating temporarily, folks needing furnished places for a month or two. And then you explicitly say it's not for parties, that you have strict rules, you screen guests, you maintain professionalism.
Saying not a party house directly seems smart. What are the main selling points the script suggests to overcome objections?
Okay, several key ones. Guaranteed rent payment, no matter if you have guests or not. That's huge for landlords. Less wear and tear, arguably, because it's professionally cleaned constantly, maybe more often than a long-term tenant would clean. You're an insured, possibly licensed business, which adds a layer of security for them. They only deal with one point of contact, you, the professional, instead of maybe chasing down individual tenants. And maybe you even offer small upgrades like smart locks or better lighting that benefit the owner long-term.
So you're basically pitching yourself as a super tenant who improves the property and guarantees income. Makes sense. If a landlord seems interested after that pitch, what are the absolute must-ask questions according to the source?
3 main things you need confirmed. Are they genuinely okay with a longer lease, say 2-3 years? Will they specifically allow you to furnish it and sublease it short-term, in writing? And are there any HOA rules or building regs or insurance issues you need to know about? The source says you need clear yes answers on all those before moving forward.
And there was a bonus tip in there, too.
Yeah, they call it anchoring with peace of mind. The idea is most landlords just want reliable income and someone who won't trash their place. So you frame your whole business around the fact that your success depends entirely on keeping their property immaculate and being a hassle-free partner. You treat their property like a valuable asset because for your business, it absolutely is. You're selling them peace of mind.
That really reframes the whole dynamic. Okay, so putting all this together from the source material, it paints short-term rental arbitrage less as a simple real estate trick and more like launching a full-on hospitality business, just using property you don't own.
Absolutely. That's the picture painted. Success, based on this material, isn't just finding a cheap apartment. It's about finding the right kind of property, getting good at pricing dynamically, building solid operational systems, using the right tools, and crucially, navigating those local regulations. They really emphasize that, plus mastering guest service and automation.
And based on how the source frames it all, who is this really for?
It seems presented as ideal for entrepreneurs focused on cash flow, who are okay with less capital risk upfront, but understand and can manage the higher operational and regulatory risks involved.
Yep.
And who are willing to really dig into the management, the hospitality side, rather than the traditional buy and hold landlord path.
That sums it up well based on what we've read. It's a trade-off. Stability and equity growth of ownership versus potentially higher cash flow and scalability through intense management.
Well, that's certainly been a thorough walkthrough of STR arbitrage, grounded just in the material we had, from the definition, the steps, the pros and cons, the tools, right down to that crucial landlord chat.
Yeah, it really highlights that the make or break factor seems to be the execution of the business model itself, doesn't it?
It really does shift the focus. It makes you think less about the building and more about the business inside the building, treating the space itself as, well, a product you're selling in the hospitality market. It kind of leaves you wondering perhaps about the long-term viability. With regulations constantly changing in different cities, is this a truly sustainable model everywhere? Or are the skills needed less about finding a property deal and more about being incredibly good at building systems and delivering consistent, high-quality service, almost like a mini hotel chain? It definitely makes you think about the different ways to leverage real estate, even without holding the deed.